Starting.
Yeah.
It's recording. We are live. So, hi, I'm Dia, and we have McConnell, who is the author of The Sunset Sovereign, SPFBO entrant, over here with me. And yeah, go ahead, Erin.
Hi everybody, and hi Dia. Nice to be here. Nice to see you.
So, how does it feel, being part of SPFBO 9 and this grand thing happening?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How does it feel to be part of SPFBO? I had a look through the people that I'm up against with, and I thought, okay, never mind. It was nice being here because there are so many very, very good books in there. It's going to come down to, in just my group alone, let alone everyone else, it's going to come down to taste because they are all really, really good. But it's nice. It's really nice to see it, to see this happening, to see indie books being put up, and it's no other book, no trad books, just indie going at. I love that. It's really refreshing. Yeah.
Nice. So, have you read any of the books prior to the
I've
competitions?
read a few. Let me see. What have I read? I'm currently reading. I'm nearly finished, but I am currently reading The Crossing by Laurie Janey. Amazing. It's fantastic. We've just got into the exciting bit, and I was like, I knew it. I knew that was a bad guy, and it's about. I knew it. I knew it was a bad guy. I knew it. Anyway, it's very exciting. I love it. I love that book. The Crossing is fantastic. I've also read, let me see, A Quiet Vengeance, which you also loved, Tim Hardy. Fantastic. Many Savage Moons, Ben Spencer. Really, really good. Big Inception vibes. Fantastic. Imperfect Magic. Amazing. Legacy of a Vermilion Blade. Fantastic. Dragon Forged. My daughter loves that as well. Speechless and Acton Tan. Very, very nice. The Hand of God. The First Rule. Incredible. That's Stephen Hanna. The Sparrow and the Oak Tree. Beautiful Undone is a queer retelling, queer Poe retelling. Very, very good. I think that's it so far. I think.
You have read more than I have read.
I've read some before it happened. So yeah, before they were announced. So I think Beautiful Undone, Hand of God, The First Rule, Speechless and Tan, and The Oak and Sparrow I'd already read. So I have, but the rest I'm working through. I'm
Oh,
speeding through them as quickly as I can. But I'm not doing the first chapter thing. I'm just posting about the ones that I finish, and then that's it. I'm not doing the other. But yeah, reading lots.
okay. So, tell us a bit about your book and yourself. Like, how did you get to writing and all that stuff?
Oh my goodness. Well, here's my book. I got the book out. I actually only have a proof copy. Would you believe? I have not got my own copy. I still only have the proof. And this proof, I did it wrong, and it actually got 2 of my name on it. So it's anyway, that's the only one I have. It's got tea stains on it and everything. I don't have a copy of it otherwise. But yeah, I started writing. I wanted to be an author when I was a kid. And my parents told me that that was a stupid idea, that I should go to university and do something sensible with my life. So I said, okay, fine. Stopped writing. And funnily enough, at the time when I was a kid, I was writing about dinosaurs. So it's not really that much of a big step from dinosaurs to dragons. But I stopped writing, and I started writing poetry when I was 16. I was studying literature at college, studying poetry. I read Auden and I read Larkin, and poetry just opened up to me. And then when I started at university, I started reading Chekhov and Ibsen and playwriting. I wanted to be a playwright. That was the thing I wanted to be. And I started writing plays. I was absorbed entirely in the theatre. I worked in the theatre at the time as well, and that was what I wanted to be. And then life happened, and I stopped writing entirely. Wrote poetry, got some poetry published, but didn't write anything else. And then finally, a couple of years ago, I decided I was going to start writing fan fiction. And I'm laughing, not because of fan fiction. I love fan fiction. But I started writing, I was already writing fan poetry, and I get some published in the Am on Hen because I write Middle Earth fan fiction. So some of that's been published by the Tolkien Society. But then I thought, you know what, I'm going to write something really short. And I thought, it's going to be rubbish, it's rubbish. And everybody said, oh, that's quite good. I thought, oh, I'll write a longer one. And then I thought, oh, I'll try like 5,000 words. And I got one with Feanor, and it was the burning of the ships, if you're familiar with the Silmarillion. And it was really dark and really dramatic, and I loved it. I got into his head, and I was writing about this psychopath burning up ships and how he felt like it was his own person. And I was like, this is quite good, quite like this, it's all right. And carried on writing fan fiction, thought nothing of it. And then I had an idea for a story. It was an original fiction. I was only writing fan fiction, but in the corners, I was always like, I like to have my own ideas. But I had this dream about it, and it wouldn't leave me, about an analyst. And of course, you know who the analyst is because you've read The Sunset Sovereign. So it started with her. It started with an analyst and a girl. And the girl was learning about how to be an advocate, how to set and speak for people. And she had to speak for a person who could not read. And that was a fundamental first detail I knew about Poll. She couldn't read. And so therefore she needed that help. And it took her a long time. The girl, I didn't even have a name for her. It took her a long time to work out that she was so resistant because she couldn't read. And that was why she wasn't understanding what was happening. And she was trying to save her, trying to represent her. And it didn't work. The dream was like, it ended in this most awful execution. I was just like, oh, that's horrible. And it just stayed. And I'm thinking, there's a story. And I tried writing it, and it didn't go anywhere. There was just not enough there. And I thought, okay, I'll just put it aside. It doesn't matter. And then I came across some prompts for writing prompts, titles, and it was The Sunset Sovereign, and I had a dragon, and I thought, oh, that looks really cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. How would I write a book about what's the Sunset Sovereign? What is that? It's dragons. And then I was thinking about the dragons, and then I got the voice, and then the whole analyst story came in and went, I belong right here. And it was like, oh, there we go. And that was that. And it was the whole thing with the journey that she steps from her own world into the capital, and it all just sprung up, and my hair's standing, and then thinking about it, because it was just like, oh, there we go. That was what I was missing. I was missing the dragons. And then they just came in, and it just kept growing. So it was entirely accidental, which is why I call myself the accidental novelist, because I was trying to write a novella. I had my writing coach telling me, this isn't a novella, Erin. This is a book. In fact, this is a series. And I'm like, no. It's a novella. I'm writing a novella. And she's like, you're writing a series. Deal with it. And I'm writing a series, and I'm dealing with it. So that's how I got to it. That was my strange story.
So the fact that you're a poet and you also you wrote plays. So how does that affect your writing?
Oh, well, as a reader, you'd probably have to tell me more. I write in scenes. My chapters are always scenes, and I always finish and end a scene with that closing. It's each scene is always interconnected, but it finishes. It's always self-contained, and I have a lot of that. I think dialogue is something that I do quite well with from playwriting, that I'm always thinking about how they're intersecting with each other, and I can put that tension into it from there. But I think, Ibsen's one of my biggest, and Chekhov, one of my biggest influences. So when people ask about authors, I'm like, I don't know, but it's actually playwrights that have an influence on my writing, and that's where they come in, I think. Yeah. But people do say my writing is quite poetic, so there must be something in that too.
Yeah, there's this one scene, I'm not gonna tell which scene, where the writing, it's like very, I don't understand poetry, first thing. Like, I don't understand, the lyrical nature of poetry and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt very, like, it flowed very well, and it felt like it was like very soothing. I wrote in my review that it's very, like, soothed my soul or something like that. So I could feel the effect, but I can't exactly put into words what exactly about that passage that made me feel like that.
Yeah, I think sometimes poetry does have that. I think it's like song titles. When it has that lyrical element to it, it touches you somewhere else. It sort of hits on that subconscious. And so it's not just about reading, it's about hearing, and it just links them up together. And you just have that moment of resonance where you just feel connected to something. And it's like you just get to step into that world for a moment. And it's like, oh, wow. And yeah, I think it's that lyrical element makes such a difference. You can really immerses you. Yeah. Yeah.
So this brings me to the next question, the magic system.
Oh, yes.
The magic
Yes.
system. You have to
Quantum
tell me like
physics.
quantum physics.
Mm. Quantum physics. The quantum sea, the sea of unconscious, sea of consciousness. The idea is with anything within with quantum physics is that what you see is what you get. Your intention affects what happens, and on a tiny level. So it's very much like the ideas that we have of self-fulfilling prophecy. If you expect something bad to happen, something bad's going to happen. If you expect for karma to happen, karma will happen. And that's on the macro level or the philosophical level, but this is on the tiniest level, that if you expect to see this, it will happen. And it's that sort of, and there's a resonance within the entire universe. The idea is that everybody is part of something, of a whole, and so all of us are resonating, and that there will be a part of you that resonates with a part of me or somebody else across the world or across the universe. There's still a part of you because you all came from something of the same. And the idea of the quantum sea is something that I think fits really closely into spirituality, because it's the idea that there's this entire sea of consciousness that we can all dip our toes into, that we can all reach. And that when we touch something, when our memories are all stored in that, and that when we sometimes when people will be singing or talking, we find that element, and it's that moment where the resonance hits and you feel it and you see it. Or you might be meditating and you just feel this well of wisdom from somewhere, and it's the idea is it's the quantum sea that everybody can see and reach, that we're all connected to it. And I think that was the idea. I wasn't trying to do something with quantum physics, and it was another moment of real existential angst for me, because I was thinking, who's going to want to read a dragon fantasy with science in it? It's just silly. It just doesn't work. This is dragons. We need swords. We need knights. We need maidens. And it was, I don't have this. I don't have swords. I don't have smuts. I don't have maidens. It doesn't work. And it was like my writing coach
Uh,
kept saying, write what you know. She said, this is what you are. She says, you are a science person. You're a science nerd. This is how you understand this magic. This is how you put this together. Use it. And she said, and people will understand it. And I said, okay. So, but yeah, that's the point of the song magic. The whole idea of the sovereigns is that they've always been wise. They're this ancient species that go around and worlds, not just this world. They go around worlds and they're teaching people. They're mentoring people to help them build their worlds better. And because there were people that understood and people that didn't, they decided it would be better to take the enlightened people and put them in their own perfect utopian world, and they would look after them. And the memories of the people, all the memories would be given to the scions, and that it's for the sunset, that they would be given to the scions, and the scions would give that to the dragons, so that dragons could understand the feelings of the people and then help the people better. And it's that, so they are like the scions become the memory cells, the well of consciousness for the sovereigns, but also for the people, because they're the conduit between the two. They're the people that reach the sovereigns, but they also reach the people. And obviously each quarter is different. So sunrise is about is about pushing back entropy and decay by naming your fears and knowing what you're here for. So you have less fears because you know why you're here. You know what you're supposed to do. You have an understanding of it. Day is about healing and growing. Sunset is about speaking for people and endings. And then night, which is the one that's going to be done last, is about space and time. And it's the understanding of, and of course, Yvain in here, she sees the future, but she can't do anything about it. She can't change the future. She just can see what people will do. There will be another in Sunrise, Nash, who is a night scion, and he can see the past. And so he understands why people's motivations are such. And so that's going to be quite pivotal when we come later, because it's that moment of people, one person can see the past, one person can see the future, and then you can start finding a solution of what to do next. Yeah, that's it's ridiculous. Yeah, the magic, quantum physics, the quantum sea.
Yeah. So, Isabel, you based her on like someone you know, or you just came like because I found her, struggles very relatable, very real. So, how did
Yeah.
you came up with her?
Isabel, well, partly she's from the dream that was the person that she was supposed to be. I asked my daughters what to call her. My daughters are now 9 and 6. They were 7 and 4 probably at the time. And the older one said, call her Isabel. I like Isabel. I said, all right, yeah, good, that's good. And my younger daughter said, Spider Girl. What? And I said, I don't know, maybe we should choose a different name. She just looks at me with this implacable look, because she's just like, this is what's happening. I said, Spider Girl, and that's what she's going to be. So I said, Isabel and Spider Girl then, okay. But that's how, but I think I haven't changed Isabel. She is who she is, and I find her by turns inspiring and so infuriating, because she doesn't know what we can see, so many things, and she just doesn't see it. She doesn't have it. And that's, yeah. But yeah, I think she's definitely, I think she's definitely.
Erin,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, she's gone. Has she gone?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, there's some network issue on my end. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
that's okay. That's no problem. That's
I'm
no
so
problem.
sorry. There's some network issue and it's still recording. I don't know what happened in the middle.
That's all right. I'm sure it can just slice that. So,
Merge. Yeah.
mm.
Okay. Yeah. So you were saying that your daughters named the character
She
Isabel,
named them, yeah, Isabel and Spider Girl. And so I had to work with
Spider
that.
Girl. Yeah.
But yeah, I think Isabel was herself. She came, she arrived that way very much. I think there's some of me in there. I mean, I'm neurodivergent, and I certainly struggle with working out people and working out how they're going to do things. So that certainly comes probably as help there. But yeah, no, she's her own person, no inspiration.
Oh, okay. And so, what made you like? How did you decide that the story is gonna be a dystopian story, a cozy dystopian story?
I only write dystopian. I don't write when I mean I don't just write dystopian at the moment. I'm currently writing. I'm planning out a cozy sci-fi, which is going to be wonderful. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be called Robots and Roses. I'll be writing that soon. But I do write dystopian. I prefer the villain to be an organization, and for it to be very grey rather than a big dark lord. I love the idea of
I was
the organization is a problem. This is where
coming
the
to that
evil is.
point. Yeah, yeah. I was coming to that point that the big bad of the story is not one person or a monster. It's an organization, administration. So
Yes.
it's very Kafkaesque in my opinion. And like, how did you come up with that idea that it's gonna be this thing?
I think well I think really that's just my background, because I studied and I still teach history and psychology. So for me that is the all conflict comes down to ideology, and to it doesn't come down, we don't have one person rising up above the rest. Even when we talk about dictators, there's a group of people and ideas behind them that has pushed them to that point. So for me, even when writing fantasy, because I don't tend to write medieval fantasy except in fan fiction. I write modern fantasy, and that's how it is. That's how it is for us. And when we face a threat, it's not one evil man or one evil woman. It is a group with very strong ideas. That's where the danger lies. The danger lies in people believing that they're doing something right, not with people wanting to be evil. They might end up that way, but they start out wanting to do something different to change the world. And so for me, that dynamic is scarier, because you can look for a dark lord coming in with his big flaming sword and you can see that, but you can't see an administration who has set out to do something. You can't see that when that goes wrong, and too many things happen and then it's too late. And it's be too easy to do it yourself, to put yourself in that situation. So yeah, it is. But I like grey. I like morally grey villains. I mean, the sovereigns are good creatures. They're wise dragons, but they are also not entirely right. I would say they're a lot like the Jedi Council. In fact, yeah, they're like the Jedi Council. So they have these great ideas, but they're not helping people, and they haven't realized. So yeah, that's the element of dystopian for me, is that investigating why does something go wrong? Where does it lie in human nature? Because there is not one good person or one bad person. It's just people. So yeah, that's how I have to write. I have to write it that way. It's always going to be dystopian. Always. It just is. But the cozy side of it comes in that pace. And I hadn't entirely meant to be cozy, but yeah, the capital is great. I love it. I think it's just beautiful, and then they lingered there. So it just became this smaller stakes. Although obviously the situation with Paul is at higher stakes. There's not big wars. It's trying to change from within and trying to learn lessons. And so yeah, it just became this weird dichotomy of the two together that shouldn't fit. As you said yourself in your review, they shouldn't fit together. You cozy dystopian, but it does. It just works.
So, do you think the stakes are gonna be higher in the future book?
I'm trying to answer that without giving too many spoilers. The stakes get higher. The next book is, which I'm writing at the moment. Well, I'm actually writing 2 and 3 at the moment, but I'm concentrating on 2. The next book focuses on Jed and Holly, and it focuses on Fabio. And this next book is about the people who've been left behind, remembering their people, remembering the other Scions, and trying to work out what the heck is going on with the administration, trying to set up some kind of resistance, trying to reach the sovereigns to say, there's a lot going wrong here. So that things are starting to change. The administration starts to cut out the influence of the sovereigns, and they start to use the technology that they found. And they're not using it for the right reasons, because they don't understand why they should be using these things. They've lost the wisdom along the way. So the stakes start to get higher. Yeah, definitely. But a lot of it's still internal. A lot of it in the Day Sovereign is when everybody returns from the long sleep. So we'll have the return of Yvain, we'll have the return of Isabel, and we'll have the return of Aidan as well. And of course, Aidan is going to be, he's going to have PTSD. He's in pieces. He's in complete pieces. He's going to need Farn and Lark to really bring him, and Briar to bring him back. But yeah, it's going to be still a lot of internal struggle. But again, each book goes through each quarter. So the Sunset Sovereign is about speaking for others and learning about using your voice. The Sunrise Sovereign is about learning about what your purpose is. The Day Sovereign is about healing, and that's what each book is. Each book has its own plot that continues, but it also focuses around that. So obviously that's where the stakes are going to be higher. But yeah, it is. The administration have not stopped. They are not going to stop where they are. They're continuing, and they're going to need to be stopped somehow. I mostly know how they get stopped, but I don't completely know everything about it. So sometimes I'm like, can you just tell me? Could you give me a little hint of how we're going to do this? Because I don't know. So it's can be quite interesting. Yeah, will work itself out, I'm sure. Yeah, no, the stakes get higher. They do. They're getting, the ante is being upped, which is good. I prefer it actually, because the next book is 15 years on. So Holly is now like early 30s and she's
Oh,
been married for a while. And then obviously the next after Long Sleep, that will be another 25 years on. So we're talking about grown up people who are trying to fix things. They're not teenagers anymore. And that's going to, I'm preferring that. That's much better. Yeah. Yeah. And 30-year-old Holly is an absolute badass. She's brilliant. She's really, really good. So, yeah. Yeah,
let
that's
me
the
quickly
thing.
check. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, uh, you have explored platonic relationships in this book instead of showing any romantic relationship. Like there
Yes.
was romance, but not on page.
No.
So what are your thoughts on, how platonic relationships are portrayed in books usually?
I think there isn't enough. I think platonic relationships seem to be there, but you are always expected to assume that there is going to be something else. So it's either, oh, they're friends, but they would if they had the opportunity, or they're friends, but there's too many things going on. It always seems to be a step from one to the other, and I think that's a real shame. I think we should explore platonic friendships. I mean, if you look in history, in the history of literature, Sam and Frodo, an amazing relationship, and they were best friends. And this is at Hunger Games as well. We have situations with what's her name, with Katniss, the guy, Gale, and they were still remain friends, and they're close. And this is something that you do see, but you don't. Yeah, I don't think you see enough of it. I think people do place too much on romance, and I understand that. I understand romance gives its own tension that's useful in a book, but I think there are a lot of other elements within a friendships, close friendships, that, and the different kinds. Like Fawn has a really mentoring relationship with the supplicants, um, as do the scions, the sovereigns as well. They have a very much mentor, almost like uncle child, aunt child relationship with, and that's an important one too. I think that's something that, yeah, I think it should be, and I think in this world, especially with the sovereigns, because you have such a close relationship with this person in your head, this dragon, who knows so much more than you. What do you need somebody else for? What for? What, who would you're not going to share things with them, because you would share first with your voice. So for the scions, I think their first love is always going to be almost like a religious love, or it's going to be, it's agape. It's looking up to somebody and just thinking, wow, this is perfect. And Storger in that sense as well, that it's that kind of love, that the platonic or love, as opposed to romantic. It takes the bonds aren't as strong for romantic love. And I mean, in that sense, we see that because obviously Aidan chooses to stay in the capital. Well, he chose to stay in the capital with Briar, and so did Holly with Jed. And so they chose to cut the bond with the sovereigns to stay. So yeah, I think you can only have one or the other if you're a scion. I think. I say I think because I don't know what the characters are planning to do, so I'm not sure. Maybe. But yeah, I think it is important. I mean, I'm ace myself, so I like to try and write with an ace perspective to put that in, because I think even if you're not, I think reading a book with platonic relationships and showing that value is nice. It's something we need. But yeah, it's always going to have that perspective for me. Isabel doesn't seek romance. She doesn't even know if that's what she wants to have in her life. And I don't know that she ever will. I don't see a person for her. She's her own person, maybe. I don't know. Not sure. She might change my mind.
Okay, so if you had to create a soundtrack for your book, what songs would you choose?
I wrote most of the Sunset Sovereign with the, which one is it? The Florian Crystal album. Let me see if I can find it. I write a lot to instrumental music. I don't listen very often to a lot of sci-fi. When I'm writing sci-fi, I often listen to Hans Zimmer soundtracks. But this one was the yeah, Florian Crystal. Crystal. Which one was it? Albums. Come on now, albums. That one, yeah. This one here, it's the one I was playing most. I'll just bring that up if you can see it. Florian Crystal, About Time.
About time. Okay.
Yeah, Florian Crystal. That
Really
entire
good.
album is just beautiful, and then in particular, Reminiscence was one that was just huge, and it's so very poignant. It's beautiful, but it's very poignant, and that element of sacrifice. Incidentally, Isabel's name means sacrifice, and I hadn't chosen it. My daughter chose it, but it fits perfectly. Yvain's is Scottish Gaelic for twilight, and hers means sacrifice. But yeah, so it's that element of the endings, which is runs through Sunset Sovereign, or the endings leaving their parents behind, leaving each other behind. That was the, yeah, Reminiscence. Florian Crystal's Reminiscence would be the song that fits most with Sunset Sovereign. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, and then you can listen to it and you'll say, oh,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
If you had to choose a faction for yourself,
Oh, you first. What would you choose?
I think day.
Fawn and Forest. Yeah, yeah. I would probably go for Sunrise. Purely because I'm writing them at the moment, but there's something about Sunrise, because Sunrise has white courtyards with white roses and glass statues, and the and it's beautiful. And obviously, because I know, because I'm writing it, I didn't know so much about it at the time, but the scions, when they take the new supplicants, they make them a nest in the very top tower. And so when the dragons come by at sunrise, they can wake up, and the dragons will come in at the window to say hello to the new supplicants. And so they would literally wake up from this nest full of blankets, and Kian would set it up so that they would be able to reach out and touch the dragons every morning, and so they never felt alone. And I feel there's just such beauty in Sunrise, and because for them it's naming people to give them the bravery and the courage. That's what they're there for. They're there to build people up and to help them understand who they are. And I just admire that so much. I just think Sunrise is aesthetically, with the whites and the glass and the white rose, is beautiful, but also who they are. I think Sunrise is just lovely. But you don't know enough about Sunrise yet because you haven't seen them, so you wouldn't have known. It's just really difficult. I know you've only really seen mostly. But I do also like Night and Jetta. I'd love to go and meet Jetta, who is one of the Night Sovereigns. I love her. Jetta, and there's the other one. Yeah, they're Night Sovereigns, and I'd love to meet them as well. Although they're a bit scary looking, but yeah. But Day would probably be my second choice, I think.
So, how did you come up with the world, the structure, and everything?
How did I come up with the world? I don't know. It just, I have to do a lot of picture world building because I have aphantasia, so I don't see. I have it in my head, but I can't see it with my inner eye. So I have to do a lot of looking on places to see, to find what it is I'm looking for. And when I see it, I'm like, oh, there we go. So I knew that the world was very modern, and I knew that the world was a world within worlds that you could go to only at certain times. I knew that. And then it grew slowly into that sort of marketplace with semi-modern buildings, and it's very much like 19th century sort of, but then it has the weird tech as well. So it sort of unfolded slowly in front of me, and it was that sort of, oh there, oh yes, that's there, isn't it, that's there, and it just unfolded. But the forest came so quickly with the singing trees and that sound, that came in, and it was just like, this is, and it seems to, although I don't think geographically it is, it feels like it's right in the center of it for me. It's right in the center of the capital, that whole huge forest. But yeah, it's sort of, it just built itself slowly. I'm still I'm still working on that one as well. I'm still trying to get, well, it's there, but I'm still piecing together what it looks like. There's so many parts of it. Yeah.
So, are we going to see more of the outer world?
Yes. Yes, you are. The next book starts with the outer world, because it is before Marin, who is the sunrise scion, comes back from her long sleep. So we see a lot of her, and Callisto is her dragon, her sovereign of their world. So we see a lot of that. Callisto Callisto's a sovereign. She likes mountains. So we're going to be going back out of the capital frequently, because she wants to see the world. She wants to know what's going on, because she's going back to the elders. So we're going to see more about the other sovereigns outside as well, because she's going to go back to the elders to say, there's something going awry here, and I don't quite know what's happening. So we see more of the outer world. We see more of the long sleep in the stars as well, and we start to see a little bit more of the sovereigns as we go along. Yeah, it's all going bigger. Although we're still staying focused on the capital, this is where everything's happening in the capital, but we are going back outwards to see some of those other places. Starting with where Marin is from, because she's from the mountains. Yeah. No pressure, like Aaron, no pressure. It's like I'm still writing, obviously, and it's just like, oh my god. Sometimes I think, what have I bitten off? This is just huge.
But the way you have executed it is like flawless.
Yeah. Oh well, thank you. This is great. I'm glad to hear that. I do wonder, because I did a lot of planning, and I write everything down as I go along. But sometimes even then they surprise me. I mean, Fabio surprised me when he said they don't have any money, and I was saying, what? When did this happen? And I'm looking through my notes, I'm thinking, I didn't plan this. What is this? And he continues, and I'm like, Fabio, wait a minute, I didn't plan this. And I'm then going, well, it sounds great. Yeah, I like this. I'll put it in the notes. But it's, why didn't you tell me? I'm the author. Why does nobody tell me these things? So yeah, sometimes, yeah, I often wonder if it's a little disjointed, because some of the time it's like I make plans and then they change it and do something else.
Are you currently writing anything else?
Yes, I am currently, obviously, I'm writing this on the Sunrise Sovereign. I'm about a third of the way through that, I think. I'm almost finished writing a gothic horror about a sentient and feral bookshop.
Nice.
And that's called the Black Cat Bookshop. And that's basically the bookshop. When it chooses people, it gives them things that they want. It might give you extra power. It might give you romance. It might give you abilities to see things. It's always going to give different people things, but then it will expect payment, and it will start to take from people around you. It will just destroy people, and so obviously you have to pay. You either have to give yourself up or give other people up. And so that one's been quite fun. And I'm also writing a dystopian sci-fi series, which is very much like Tatooine meets Shawshank Redemption. It's in on a desert prison planet, And in the desert prison planet, it's called Woeston, which is Afrikaans for desert. And in that prison, they don't lock the doors because you have to earn your way into the prison. They leave you out in the desert and you have to collect the ore, enough ore to then earn your way into a cell. And then after that, you will never go back outside again because it's terrifying. There are the dust devils, which will eat you. There are, the sun is just horrendous. Yeah, it's a really, really dark place. And I'm writing, I've nearly finished that series. There's the Guard of Woeston, it's obviously one of the guards. There's the dust collector, that's Darius, who's been sentenced to 300 years, and he chooses to live out in the desert because he'll never go home anyway, so he may as well die on his own terms. So he's there. Then there's the King of the Mines, who he is in charge of all of the dust devils, and he's like completely crazy, very strange. And then there's Pilgrim, who when he knew he was going to Woeston, he chose to set up a life there, and he set up an entire centre before he even got there, so that he could continue his crime empire from the desert planet, basically. So he's a complete criminal, but he just says, well, if I'm going there, then I'll set up business there. This sounds good. So he sets it all up, and he's called Pilgrim, and he's quite interesting. So that's 4. Those are the ones I'm doing at the moment. I'm nearly finished with the Woeston series. I'm nearly finished with the bookshop. And then next up is the cozy sci-fi, Robots and Roses. I've got that on the table. I've got a ghost story called The Shadow Fair, which is quite beautiful. And then I've got 2 steampunk stories. One is about an automated mechanical fair, and the other is about sentient iron horses. Oh, and I've got more dragons, Kaida as well. Dragons. Yeah, that's it. That's all. That's it. That's it. Ridiculous, isn't it?
How do you keep track?
I do not know. I really do not know. They just keep coming. The ideas just keep coming. It's just ridiculous. They're all in files on my computer, and I come back to them from time to time. And then obviously when like with the Woeston, I've been getting on with the Woeston, that's nearly done. And I'll be finished with Woeston, with Pilgrim, and then I can forget about that. And then I'll start doing the cozy sci-fi, which I am really looking forward to, the robots. That's a really, really nice story. They make an underground garden to renovate the town, and the town don't want them there because they're robots.
That's the one you were talking about.
Yeah. So this is what they're going to be renovating an underground garden. And then bit by bit, the town is going to start getting involved and setting up a yoga station there, and they're going to be helping them to learn how to make roses, to grow the roses, and then they get integrated into So I'm really looking forward to Robots and Roses. But I've got some really good cozy sci-fi ones that I'm going to be doing. They've got that one, and I've got one that I've been drafting on chapter outline. That one's about intergalactic librarians, who are basically this group of old ladies who are sick of the fact that they don't have books anymore. So they're going all around getting books to people. But I don't know much more about it than that. I just got the idea and thought, that's amazing. A group of old lady librarians who are in space getting books to everybody. I like that.
That's amazing.
That's it. I think that's it. Probably.
So, what are some of your favorite dystopian stories?
I really, really like Orchard of Skeletons by Eli Wilde. Absolutely beautiful story. It's really dark. That's just incredible. And Handmaid's Tale. Margaret Atwood. Yeah, those 2. Perfect. I do like the Hunger Games. I really did like the Hunger Games, and I really like the way she did it with President Snow. Fantastic. I thought that was excellent too. Yeah.
So the fact that you made factions and a choosing ceremony and all that, is that a callback to the 2011s, early 2010s, those stories, dystopian stories?
Oh, not consciously. I think when it comes to stories, I think the idea of the choosing, the idea of being sent away is very fundamental in dystopian fiction. And yeah, like you say, with Divergent, they had the factions there, the Hunger Games, the districts. I think this is, yeah, I think it's something that you do start to see. And I think in terms of that, in terms of people, we like to see tribes. Harry Potter, you can say to somebody, what house do you like? Oh, I'm Slytherin. Oh, I'm Ravenclaw. People love that. And I think that, yeah, I think that does come into it. That each person, like you say, is just, I'm a day sovereign. I'm with the day sovereign. I'm sun and sunrise, and yeah, you find a place with yourself within it. So I think it's not consciously a throwback to it, but I think we all need that sometimes. That reading a book and finding our sense of belonging in a part, finding a tribe in there. I think that works for us. Maybe. Although I did read all the Divergent and dystopian Hunger Games, so it could be. Maybe I cobbled something from there and took it out. Quite possible.
Yeah, no, reading it reminded me a lot of those books I used to read at that time. And I was
Mm.
like, it was a very fond memory. Like me reading those books at that time, it brought up those memories. And I was like, I need to ask, them about this
Yeah,
thing.
I do love them. I do love them. I really loved Divergent. Divergent was the one I couldn't ever decide which faction I would have been in. I was either Dauntless or I was the what was the other one? The white ones, the ones that are always speaking, and yeah, those ones, the white
Uh,
ones, whatever they were.
White ones, the truth speaking ones, right?
Yeah, the true speaking, exactly. I can't think what the names were. I
Yeah,
didn't
even
like
I
the
can't.
blue ones. I didn't want to be a blue one, but the white ones, I'd have been the white ones or Dauntless. I'd have been one of those
Yeah,
two.
they were black and white all the time or something
Mm.
like that.
Mm. Yeah, I liked those very much. Yeah. No, I did like them. I thought they were really good. Maze Runner too. All of those dystopian fictions were excellent to read. They were really, really good. So wouldn't be surprised if they did influence me into writing a fantasy that's much more modern, much more. Yeah.
Yeah, like it had the elements of those older stories, but it had a fresh take on them with the magic and everything.
Yeah. I mean, there is an element of that, the mixture between fantasy and sci-fi. I mean, probably my earliest influences in terms of book reading would have been Tolkien, Orwell, and Stephen King, Dean Koontz, because I was a big horror fan. So I think that does definitely impact in my fantasy, because I love reading fantasy, but I've never wanted to write a fantasy about swords and medieval and knights. It's not been, I've just never found that for me. My stories are
Yeah,
always based here.
coming off the reading slump, like I read this right after I came out of my reading slump, and I was, very. It was a very refreshing read. Like I said, it was like very soothing to my soul and all that. And
Oh, good.
I absolutely enjoyed the book. And I am glad that you took out your time to come chat with me.
Oh, I'm glad
And
to. It's been good.
I hope there were some internet issues, but I hope we have enough good footage, you know, of our chat
I
so
think so.
that other people can enjoy it. Okay, so I'm thinking of ending it here.
Yeah, that
Ending the
sounds fine.
recording. Ending the recording.
Absolutely fine. That's great.